In today's video, I'm going to tell you all about what I have planned for my 2018 garden. Stay tuned. Hey fellow garden gnomes, this is Brittany. Welcome back to my channel where I take you guys along with me on my journey to self-sustainability. Every year that I garden, I learn a little bit more, and so this will be my third video in a row where I will be talking about what I'm going to be planning to improve in my garden for the coming season. Only this year, I think I'm going to open up this video to a bunch of other people and make it a tag. So stay tuned till the end of the video to find out who I've tagged. The last 2 years, I have planted my potatoes in containers, and I've said a couple times why that is. I am still figuring out how to best plant potatoes in containers to get the best harvest. So the next 8 points are actually all about how I'm going to be planting my potatoes. First off, I'm going to be filling my containers halfway with soil mix before planting the seed potatoes. In past years, I've only filled up the container maybe a quarter to a third of the way with the soil mix. I was under the impression that the potato plant ultimately grows more upwards than downwards, and I've been looking at diagrams of how potatoes grow, and I think that I may have overestimated or underestimated actually how much the potatoes grow downwards. To give a brief explanation, basically when you plant your seed potato, it will start growing roots downwards, but it'll also start growing a stem upwards. And as that stem grows, if you cover it with dirt, which is why people mound in ground, it will actually send out more roots from that stem that's covered in soil. And at the end of all your roots, you'll get a potato, hopefully. So in past years, I tended to think that there was more root growth above the seed potato than below the seed potato. And now I'm thinking that maybe that was a mistake. And so now I'm going to fill my containers halfway with soil mix so that there's plenty of room for the seed potato to grow downward. Now last year I was really happy with the mix that I made, which was about half coconut coir, half a mixture of topsoil and compost. It was so light and it made it very easy for potatoes to expand into, which is I think what you really want. The issue with that type of mix though is that it's going to be very low in nutrients, and potatoes are heavy feeders. So one thing I'm definitely going to do in 2018 is I'm going to fertilize my potatoes. So my plan is that once I plant my seed potatoes, which I'm planning to plant them about 5 inches apart because that seems to be the consensus between a lot of other people who plant their potatoes in containers. So once I plant those seed potatoes, I'm going to put down 1 layer of a slow release organic fertilizer, and then as I'm filling in the container, because as the potato plant grows, I'll fill in the container, basically mimicking mounding in ground. And as this happens about every month, I'll put some more fertilizer down. And then eventually I will fill the container all the way up to the top with soil. In past years I haven't, and especially since I'm going to be starting out the container halfway filled with mix, it makes more sense to bring it up even higher at the end than I have done in previous years. I also want to minimize the amount of shade that's on my soil surface, because of course if you have a container that has a lower soil level than the top of the container, the sides of it is going to project shade onto my soil surface. And I feel like that probably can't be good. Also, something I really want to try is a little trick that I learned from a YouTube channel here called 1 Yard Revolution. And it's to basically put my container on a slight angle. And so what I think I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take like a big plywood board, something thin, but but wide and has a good width and length. And I'll probably prop up one side on some rocks or bricks or whatever so that it's slightly slanted towards the south. And then I'm going to set my container on there, and so it can't be a very steep incline or the container would just slide down or soil would move drastically in the container. So it's just going to be a very, very slight incline. Basically, by causing a slight incline towards the south means that the angle at which the sunlight is hitting the soil in my containers will be the same as the angle the sun hits the soil several hundred miles south of where my garden location is. Now I don't know the exact calculations, but I do know that it should improve the growth of my potatoes. So I'm definitely interested in trying that. And if you want more of a look at this method, check out 1 Yard Revolution. I'll definitely put a link up to his video on the subject. He actually does it with his raised gardens, which is really cool. Lastly, with the potatoes, once I fully fill the container with the soil mix, I'm going to plant some marigolds, probably just 2, along with around my potato plant, just to provide a little bit of companion planting. I like to interplant a lot of different flowers with my different vegetable plants because it helps with deterring insects and that sort of thing. So, but of course with containers it's very easy to sort of forget to plant other stuff. So I'm going to do that. My next point is I'm going to be planting my sweet potatoes in a front garden, not my main front garden, but basically my mom's front garden. She's given me a little bit of space to do some stuff with. So I'm going to be planting my sweet potatoes there under plastic. So last year I did plant my sweet potatoes in the back garden with some plastic over it, which is a method that people in Canada use to grow sweet potatoes. You put plastic over the soil a few weeks earlier than you plan to plant so that the soil warms up a lot more, because sweet potatoes really need warm soil to grow. And then you cut holes in plastic and plant your slips straight into there. So last year was an experiment. It didn't really go that well, most likely because the back garden doesn't get a lot of sunlight. So even with the plastic, the soil probably didn't get very warm. But the front garden, my mom's front garden, does get a lot of sun, and so as I said, he's given me a little area to do stuff with, and so I'm going to put in my sweet potato slips with some plastic and see how it does up there. If you saw my 2017 garden series, you probably know that the pumpkin plants took over everything, and so for that reason I'm going to not be planting them in my front garden. I'm going to be planting them in a bed that's to the right of my driveway, and it's an old bed that's not really been used in a while, so we do need to rejuvenate it by throwing on some compost, maybe turning the soil a little bit. But yeah, then I'm going to transplant my pumpkin plants there because there's a lot of space in that area for them to vine and not shade out my main vegetable garden. In one corner of my garden, I'm going to be doing a little Three Sisters section. If you're not familiar with the Three Sisters method, it is planting corn, beans or peas, and squash together. And so the corn, of course, gets really tall. The beans and peas can climb up the corn, so you don't have to put another type of trellis up. And then the squash vines around on the ground, and basically the reason why I use the squash is because it has such large leaves that they shade the ground, and they make it very unlikely that weeds will pop up. Now personally, instead of squash, I will be trying cantaloupe and watermelon. Speaking of peas, I'm going to plant them two ways. I'm going to plant them at the base of my trellis in April, basically as soon as the snow is gone. I can go ahead and plant peas because they don't mind if there's a slight frost. And then the next time I'm going to plant peas is when my corn is about a foot tall. I'll plant the peas at the base, and then hopefully by the time the peas really start climbing, the corn will be tall enough to support those peas. In the spring, when the snow is gone too and the frost is out of the ground, I'm going to be bringing a load of wood chips to put on my perennial beds. So the beds where I have my fruit bushes, the beds where I have my asparagus, I'm going to put wood chips there, and that will achieve a couple things. One, it'll help retain moisture so I won't have to water as much. And two, it'll keep weeds down, which means we don't have to weed as much. So that would be nice. So a third reason why I want to put wood chips down actually goes into my next point, which is I'm going to be inoculating those wood chips with mushrooms. Now I haven't decided yet whether I want to do wine cap mushrooms or morel mushrooms. Basically, wine cap mushrooms are a more tried and true mushroom that I can inoculate my wood chips outside and they'll do fine. Whereas morel mushrooms, from what I've heard, are very tricky. They're kind of fussy. You don't know whether they're going to be successful or not. So whether or not I go with one or the other, I'm not sure yet, but I'm definitely going to be inoculating those wood chips with mushrooms. Next, I'm planning on starting all brassicas and tomatoes at the start of March. I think I planted my tomatoes mid-March last year, and my brassicas probably towards the end of March, start of April. And my kale, when I went to plant them, was tiny, flimsy little things that really couldn't stand the elements very well. So I'm definitely going to be planting those earlier. And my tomatoes, I think it would be nice to have them be a little bit bigger, a little bit more established when I transplant them. Just like I did last year, I'm going to be planting my onions mid to the end of February. But this time, I'm going to be trimming them a lot more often than I did last year. Last year, I trimmed them once after seeing the suggestion in a Facebook group that I'm a part of on gardening. And I have since read from some sources that you can actually trim multiple times to really make your onion plants very strong and sturdy. I'm hoping that I can persuade my dad at one point to help me build a row cover frame for my brassicas. So row cover is just a bit of fabric that will keep the insects off of my plants, but I need some kind of hoop frame to be able to hold that fabric up. And I'll only be using that for the brassicas where I want the leaves. So for instance, not for broccoli, because broccoli, it doesn't matter the quality of the leaves because I want the florets. But with kale and cabbage, I want to keep the cabbage moth off of them because the cabbage moth will eat little holes in the leaves, which kind of, for me, I'm a little squeamish, so I don't really like eating leaves with holes in them. So definitely I'm going to try that this year. At the same time that I plant my first planting of peas, basically when the snow is melted, I'm also going to be planting radishes because they're also similar to peas in that they can withstand a frost. And then my last point is when I plant my brassicas early to mid-March, I'm going to make sure that my indoor lights are really, really close to the brassicas, because in past years I found my broccoli and my kale as well get really, really leggy, which I find just makes it harder to work with them, so I'm definitely going to lower my lights. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about my plans for 2018. As I said, I am going to make this a tag because I really want to hear about your plans. So the first 3 people I'm going to tag are Trollforge, London Worms, and Project Malice. Of course, even if you're not one of those 3 people and you're interested in taking part of this tag, please do so. Just let me know in the comments below that your video is up, and I'll be adding all the videos to a playlist, and I'll place the link for that playlist in a pinned comment below. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button. If you have friends who are gardeners and who might find a video like this interesting, please share it with them. And until the next video, stay wildly green.